Good evening. I really mean it if I have to, and I am going to continue to do my Hospice Heart book. And I held their hands with a Hospice Heart. These 24 stories of incredible people I met. I must start off with my Hospice Heart sunglasses on. That's all, just to have you see that I'm set for the occasion. Good evening, Hallelujah Light. Okay. Some of you have definitely left the reservation. I know. It's been too much. My book was enough. But now this woman reads every night about sadness and loss and suffering and pain, and she's always got her tissues, and she... No. It's life, kids. I happen to have been gifted as a writer to be able to write about life. And I will always put a spin on it. And the spin will be, if you stay with me long enough, you're going to hear about hope and faith and love. The triplets. Hope, faith, and love. And I don't care what order you put them in. So, some new people have come on, and I know why, because hospice is no stranger to your lives. There's no other book like this out there either. There's no book about hospice stories. Find one and tell me. There's no one reading a book at 5:30 every night on the internet. Tell me. Wait, one person. 24 chapters committed to love. I ask everybody, find me somebody reading their book at 5:30. So I'm not going to take any more time because this chapter is over the top incredible. See, one of the things I'm telling you is that even though you think I write about only sadness and suffering and, oh, it's a bit... No, these are real life stories with real life people, but they're always going to come through with my life in there. And my life is about hope, faith, and love. That's it. I have to do this. Now, I've done enough. My life is not about sadness and sorrow and long suffering and all that. It's life. You live long enough, you're going to deal with it. It's a part of it. You love, you lose. You go to the crap tables, you got a chance you're going to make it, you got a chance you're going to lose your money. I didn't lose anything. Again, I told you, I got 2 great books out of this. I'm fine. What I'm telling you is if you leave before it's too soon, you're not going to hear stories about hope and love and faith. And you're going to have to go through things in your life, and you're going to remember the lady who talked into her phone and told you to listen to me. Listen to my stories. Yeah, do it. Because one day if you need it, I may not be around. God bless you all. Mindy. Ooh, that's a new name, because I know your names. I go to every one of your names. I go to every one of your profiles. I check every one of you out. And something there just might be up in here that I remember. And I know one thing, living in Boca and being affiliated with this incredible hospice here, I've had a lot of people come on board who are from Boca. But hospice is everywhere around the world. And it's just a wonderful place. But my story, I wouldn't have been able to complete my book, Committed to Love, if I didn't have hospice. Because they helped me. And that's it. Hi, David. Yay! All right, chapter 5. Amazing. I look back and think, God, thank you for giving me a gift to be able to write. Thank you for giving me the gift to be able to speak. Thank you, God, for the spirit of intimidation that I do not have. And thank you because through the gifts you have given me, I'm reaching people around the world and in my own backyard. I've spoken, I've been called, I've written for newspapers, I've written. Now I sit and speak. Chapter 5, I even said read it twice, but I don't have to read it twice because it's going to be on my Facebook page forever, and then eventually on my YouTube, and eventually on my website, but it's always on Facebook, so people are going back to my stories from the beginning and reading. I don't have to read this twice, but it's so good. Oh, and I do have half an hour. You can always just tune me out and come back later. All right, here she goes, all right? Thank you, God, for this. This is only chapter 5. You're going to have to hang in with 24 chapters. You're probably going to slit your wrists first. Feeling guilty doesn't do any good, but sometimes it's the only thing you will feel. And for this daughter who thought she was crying because she was weak, it was just the opposite. Ooh, Robin, a new one. Hello, darlings. So feeling guilty doesn't do you any good, but sometimes it's the only thing you're going to feel. Oh. And for this daughter who thought she was crying because she was weak, it was just the opposite. Remember, my life's into every one of these stories. There's going to be Jeffrey and me, or just me in all of these. So, quote, passion and tears are kindred spirits. To know life is to cry. Excellent. End quote. Passion and tears are kindred spirits. To know life is to cry. Yeah, I'm good at it. October 1998. Dear Jeff, if I didn't have these stories to be able to tell you, how could I read them? Dear Jeff, we used to talk for hours about everything, anything, or nothing at all. And we always agreed on the important things. If you didn't know, Jeffrey was my late husband who died from AIDS in 1994. Something happened last night at the care center. Always do this. We used to talk for hours, Jeff and I. We shared a special... Start again, Susan. Shut it down. We needed to... Dear Jeff, this is such a good story. I'm way out. I'm off out of my bounds right here. We used to talk for hours about everything, anything, or nothing at all. And we always agreed on the important things, didn't we? We shared a special communication that very few people will ever know. Something happened last night at the care center that made me realize that I hadn't always been as honest and open with you as I could have been. I didn't talk to you about, quote, me, end quote. There were many feelings and emotions I didn't know about until you became ill and died. How could I tell you about myself when so much of me hadn't even happened yet? I had to explore my own beliefs and learn to face myself, but I've had to do this on my own. Oh, self-analysis, you think? Self-discovery? I couldn't have been honest with you until I found out how to be honest with myself first. Through my hospice experiences and by living without you, I am learning how to face my own personal issues and deal with things that have frightened me in the past. I will write to you about feelings and emotions and tell you about the woman you never knew. Can you imagine 37 years of friendship, 25 years of marriage, and there were things he didn't know about me. The lady's crying again. I will continue to explore these new and unfamiliar aspects of my life, but I will do this with self-exploration through my writing. Through written words and other people's stories. We will stay together. This, as long as I'm alive, my late husband's spirit will be living and speaking and be present. Last night at the care center, I saw a young woman crying at the bedside of her dying mother. Oh, here they go again. She's dying, somebody. Last night at the care center, I saw a young woman crying at the bedside of her dying mother. As I watched her holding the lady's hand, I felt a tear run down my cheek. I didn't know why I was crying, but I was. Why? What other reasons could there be to get me to react this way? I wasn't sad or in pain. I wasn't cold, hungry, or tired. Why was I crying? I was crying because I loved. And what I was seeing before me brought back those memories of you, Jeff. I cried from my heart, for that was where the tears began. I cried from my heart, because that's what was where the tears began. My eyes were the vehicle that carried these tears from my body. I cried for this woman, and I cried for myself. I cried for you, and I cried because I wanted to. I wanted to. My heart felt compassion, and my tears paid respect. I never thought about why some people cry and others do not. Here, my eyes were the vehicle that carried these tears from my body. That's all. My eyes were the vehicle that carried these tears from my body. I cried for this woman, and I cried for myself. I cried for you, and I cried because I wanted to. My heart felt compassion, and my tears paid respect. I never thought about why some people cry and others do not. I never assumed that because someone doesn't cry, that they are insensitive or unfeeling. Who am I to judge because they didn't react the same way I did? Some people don't express their emotions by crying. They show their feelings in other ways. For some, crying is a way of showing intimacy. For others, crying is a way of showing one's feelings about important and meaningful things. Tears cleanse your eyes and help to soothe our aching hearts. Tears ease our pain and comfort those who suffer. Tears open up our minds and allow new thoughts and ideas to flow. To cry is to be human, and to cry for someone else is to be humane. I could never write this stuff now. Believe me, I do not know how should have written more. That's my problem. I should have written many books like this. Tears open up our minds and allow new thoughts and ideas to flow. To cry is to be human, and to cry for someone else is to be humane. These stories are going to make history one day. The right person is going to come along and say, I want these stories, and I'm going to say, yeah, you do. Crying was always my way of responding to many emotional situations. Did I choose to cry, or could I control my tears? Was I even capable of stopping myself before the first tears flowed from my eyes? The answer was, capital letters, no, I could not. I was not an emotional faucet whose feelings could be turned on and off. The passion in my blood did run hot and cold. I could not turn off my tears because the timing was inappropriate and or inconvenient. When I cried in front of strangers or in public, I didn't worry about what people might have thought. There were times when perhaps I should have cried because I had to protect the feelings of others. And there were times when I feared that if I started to cry, I might never be able to stop. I don't think I ever told you this, but I used to believe that my tears were like pearls. Don't cast your pearls among swine. I was given so many at birth, and they had to last a lifetime. I had to give them away wisely and carefully. I hadn't given away all my pearls, and I have many more to share. Think about that. There were times when I feared that if I started to cry, I might never be able to stop. I don't think I ever told you this, but I used to believe that my tears were like pearls. I was given so many at birth, and they had to last a lifetime. I had to give them away wisely and carefully. I haven't given away all my pearls, and I have many more to share. Somebody by the name of Suli, what a beautiful name. You never wanted to make me cry, but you could. You could make my eyes ache with tears so great that no amount of tissues or cloths could wipe them from my stained cheeks. During our marriage, my anger manifested itself through tears, and my endless crying episodes drained both of us emotionally and mentally. My tears exhausted me. Days went by when crying was all that I did. I cried when we fought. I cried when you were going out on me. when you were cheating. I cried when I heard about AIDS, and for the next 10 years, until you became ill, I cried as I remembered as a child how I asked when I was disappointed or when I didn't get my way. As a teenager, I expressed my frustrations and rage through tears, temper tantrums, and hysterical outbursts. You knew from the moment we met how deeply I cared about you. And the thought that you would die from AIDS and the pain of watching you fight through the horror of this vicious disease opened up the floodgates of hell with tears that I never thought would ever stop. I cried myself to sleep for months after your death because the last picture I held in my mind was your wasted body lying next to me. Oh, this is rough for a lot of you. Bye. I cried for many reasons throughout the course of my life. I am thankful that I could, and I become more understanding of why I should. I lost a few in that last paragraph, but you'll come back. The following story is about tears, fears, and a loving heart. It was a cool night, and millions of stars were twinkling around a brilliant full moon. It was quiet at the center, and most of the patients were asleep. There wasn't much for me to do, so I decided to go home early. As I was leaving, I noticed a small puddle outside this room. I looked up and saw water dripping from the ceiling. I reported it to maintenance because I didn't want anybody to slip. I went back, wiped up the water, and placed a bucket under the leak. As I looked into the room, I noticed the curtain around the bed was open. I saw a young woman holding what I assumed to be her mother's hands. She was half leaning over the bed and swaying back and forth, as if she was praying. I thought I should tell her about the leak outside the room. When I entered, I knew I had interrupted them. I felt uncomfortable, and I wanted to leave. We might do the whole thing tonight, and I'll still read it again. The daughter was having a terribly difficult time with her exhaustion, and that was obvious. I said softly, quote, "Hello, my name is Susan, and I'm a volunteer. There is a water leak outside your room, and I didn't want you to slip," end quote. I asked her if the woman was her mother. As she turned to answer me, I could see the tears streaming down her cheeks. She continued to sway back and forth, holding her mother's hands, weeping uncontrollably. I pulled out a handful of tissues and stuck them in her jacket pocket. I said, quote, the halls of hospice are shedding tears for you, end quote. Quote, yes, she said, perhaps they are crying for my mother, end quote. Her mother's eyes were closed and her tiny body looked lost in the bed covers. Tucked neatly under her arm was a stuffed white teddy bear that said, quote, love, end quote. The woman's breathing was labored, and her death was imminent. Both women had suffered the long-term effects of a disease. I placed my hand under her arm and apologized for interrupting them. I said, quote, it is very apparent how much you adore your mother. She was fortunate to have you for a daughter, and that both of you have shared something very special together. It is beautiful to see such honest emotion and love, end quote. How many of you out there are dealing with this right now or have? Cry. Cry. The daughter stopped swaying and crying. She dried her eyes and said, quote, my mom was, we're going to get to the end of this, and you have no idea how this ends. And I'm reading it. The daughter stopped swaying and crying. She dried her eyes and said, quote, my mom was always there for me. I must be here for her now, end quote. However, it was what she said next that made this experience so powerful. She said, quote, I feel that I am being weak. I am not doing a very good job of being there for my mother now. I cry all the time. I feel that I am not being strong for her because I cannot stop crying. She needs my comfort and support, but I am failing her. She never failed me. She was always there and she never cried. She made me feel safe. I am not doing a very good job now, end quote. Her comment caught me off guard. She saw her uncontrollable emotions as a sign of weakness and failure. She felt guilty because she was not in control of her emotions and she didn't want to fail her mother. Her grief and emotional exhaustion contributed to her feelings of inadequacy and guilt. Her perception of how she was handling the situation was entirely different than I had perceived it. I saw her as strong, courageous, and loving. She adored her mother, and the pain of watching her pass was horrible. She was crying tears of sadness, love, and loss. I wanted to tell her that I knew what she was feeling. There were times when I felt I was failing you, Jeff, because I cried uncontrollably. The sadness and grief of saying goodbye was excruciating. What could I say that might ease her sorrow? I said, quote, "May I give you a hug?" I could really use a hug, end quote. She half smiled and said, quote, "Only if you let me take the box of tissues home with me," end quote. So she let go of her mother's hands and wrapped her arms around me. I held her tightly against my chest and said, quote, "You are crying because you love your mother, and you are going to miss her. You are crying because you care about her, and you're sad because she has suffered so much. You are crying because you are beautiful, passionate and strong. You have seen your mother to the end and allowed her to pass with dignity and respect. You are everything a daughter should be and more," end quote. She started to relax, and her tears gave way to a smile. My smile gave way to tears. She started to cry again, and we were both pulling handfuls of tissues out of the box. She said, "I hadn't thought of it that way. I always cried because I was weak. I always cried because I thought I was weak. I admired people who didn't cry. I'm not one of those," I said. "I've cried so much that I didn't think I'd ever be able to shed another tear. You've given your mother the greatest gift of all. She is very proud of you," end quote. She took her mother's hands again in hers and began telling her how much she loved her. I said good night and wished her the best. Her smile said it all as I walked out the door. She knew in her heart that she had done all the right things. Though our hug lasted only a few moments, its impact will remain with me forever. We were two strangers brought together by tissues and tears. That should be the name of my next book. Through tissues and tears. Her love reinforced my belief that the only thing important in life is what you give to others. I learned that there are many reasons for crying, and I am glad that I can. I hope that I'll never run out of tears, run out of pearls. Wait. Here. Her love reinforced my belief that the only thing important in life is what you give to others. I've learned that there are many reasons for crying, and I am very glad that I can. I hope that I'll never run out of pearls. I'll say so long for a little while. I love you, Susan. Now, does that not take your breath away? Who sang that song, "Take My Breath Away"? I don't know. I can't think about any of that now. We went from the sadness and the loss and all of the crying to a hug. So warm and passionate and caring. and two women bonded over some tissues and tears. Just when you think these stories can't get crazy enough, hi Janet, they do. They get crazier as we're going to go on. Because you have no idea. In my story, you knew how it ended. Jeff was going to die. That was it. And so I wrote for other magazines and newspapers and spoke before luncheons and keynote addresses, and when the phone would ring, you wanted this? Oh, of course. I may not have known what I was doing, but of course I'll do it. Just like these stories. Someone's going to call and say, we want to make these stories into a series. These are made for a series. They're already made for a series. I'm going to say, of course they are. Where have you been all my life? Chapter 5, a girl crying, thinking she was weak. And a stranger by the name of Susan came in and said, there's a leak up there right above your room, and I don't want you to fall. And I said, is that your mother? And she says, yes. And she started crying some more, and I said, you're crying because you love her and you're going to miss her. But the other thing is, you're crying because you were strong and you completed a journey with her. It's a journey, folks. You can get off the ship before it sails. You can get off the ship before it lands. That's not good. Or you can wait the journey out and see where it goes. That's the way it was for her. She didn't see her tears as strength. I did. I saw everything about her that was strong and courageous and beautiful and passionate. But that's me. I can take sadness and sorrow and turn it into hope, faith, and love. That's the gift the good Lord gave me. So, I am going to tell you just what chapter 6 is. And I still may go back and read this again because it's awfully good. And I know I skipped over some of the stuff that I really needed to talk about. I'm not sure. I'll have to pray about it and see what God tells me to do. Chapter 6. Now listen carefully, children. After his tragic year, a son questions whether he will ever have fun, laugh, or feel alive again. It's a chapter. Every issue in this book, 24 chapters in this book, they all have the same stuff in mind, only it's my story, not theirs. But do you think for 1 minute I could write and relate to these people if I hadn't gone through it? What, are you kidding me? Absolutely not. You can walk in someone else's shoes just so long, and then you know what? The journey's yours in your own shoes. I couldn't be doing this right now. 25 years later, almost 28 years later after his death on June 19th, you think I could be doing this if I hadn't gone through it? My gift is a writer and a speaker of life. I can talk about life and I'll put a spin on it that you will come out okay. That's the end of it. I shall say, what a great reading. Oh, this was incredible. And I may have to read it through and highlight some. If not, we'll just go into chapter 6. Will I ever have fun again? Yeah, it won't be the same. It'll be different. Oh, my goodness gracious. I am exhausted. I'm drained. I got compliments on my earrings. I get compliments on my glasses. But I lose some people with my stories. What can I tell you? New people come on. God bless you all. I shall say shalom, hello. Shalom, goodbye. And shalom, peace. Believe me, I just had a very difficult time believing I'm even doing this, all right? I know, David, you love my earrings. Yeah. Chiclets. But it's just me. I am exactly who I am. If you knew me 25, 30 years ago, there's a part of me that's the same as the other part of me you really would have run away from because I was nasty. But I feel, I love, I have depth in my heart. I care. I care more about people than they care about themselves. I care more about you maybe than you care about yourself. So cut yourself some slack. Don't take yourself so seriously. You did not invent the wheel. You're just putting a new spin on it. God bless you. Thank you. Share. Please share with your family and friends. You don't know who's the next person's life you're going to touch and who's going to touch you. A simple hug brought two of us together. Hospice doesn't say, I want to give you a hug. Hospice usually says, can I give you a hug? May I give you a hug? You don't go trespassing into someone else's space unless maybe you ask. And that's the story for today. I shall hit finish and be very grateful and know that it was a very powerful reading. And I'm saying go to SusanMintz.com, read all about my life, what I'm doing with the health department in Palm Beach County for years that I don't talk about. The website's really great. And I'm not going anywhere. Not right now, except to say finish. And thank you for some new people coming on and talk about hospice more. They do not get the recognition and what they deserve. They don't. And they should, because they help millions of people go through the roughest times in their life, and you don't hear much about them. Talk about hospice. Go to my website, and love you all dearly. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit finish.